Hello, I'm John Conrad. Today we're going to discuss the differences between investment accounts, IRA accounts, and 401ks. I think a lot of times people confuse these and then don't know what to invest in, and so they just don't invest in anything at all. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just investment accounts. And investments accounts are something you can set up through what's called a brokerage. And a brokerage can be Merrill Lynch or Fidelity or Vanguard. There's tons of them out there. And essentially what you do is you open these accounts and you'll put your money in it, and then you invest in either what are called mutual funds or stocks directly. You can also buy funds that invest in bonds, or you can buy bonds directly. And then separate from these, there are things called savings accounts. So savings accounts might just earn a set amount of interest and is guaranteed by the government. All these accounts are similar in the same way in that there's no tax advantage to them. Basically what happens is you put your money in these accounts, and when you sell or you receive a dividend or you receive a bond payment or something similar to that, you pay tax on it. That's it in a nutshell. So now I'll discuss an IRA. And basically what an IRA is, it's very similar to your investment account, but there's a tax advantage. Because when you put your money into the account, you get a tax deduction. Now you can only put money where you've had earnings on it. So if you, for example, you've had wages from a salary or you're self-employed, that's the money that can go into an IRA. There's also a limit of how much money can go into an IRA. It changes every year, and it also depends on your age, but assume about $6,000. So what happens when you do this? You'll set up an account similar to how you'd set up an investment account, but this time it's going to be called an IRA account. And every time you put money into it, you get a deduction for $6,000, if that's how much money you put in. I think the confusion lies in the fact that people think they can just put money into an IRA and then stop there. All it means is you've put your money into a tax-advantaged account. You then also have to invest that money. So I've seen a lot of times people just say, oh, I have an IRA. Well, that's great, and it's the first step, but now you have to invest. And really, you'll invest it in the exact same way that you would in an investment account. So you can put your money into the equivalent of a CD, which you'll get a very low return on, but it might be guaranteed by a bank under the FDIC. Similarly, you can buy stocks and bonds and mutual funds, everything that you can in an individual investment account. Now, there are some limitations. Because it's such a good advantage on the tax deduction side, obviously, as I've already mentioned, they'll limit how much you can contribute, but they also will limit when you can take your money out. You're going to have to be 59 and a half before you can take your money out. Now, there's some exceptions to it. So if, for example, you're buying a first-time home, you're allowed to take out a certain amount of money. Sometimes you can take out a set amount of money each year for a number of years, and you also can take it out. Now, if you don't fall under one of these exceptions, then you have to pay a 10% penalty. So basically how it works is you'll put your money in, you get the tax deduction. Then it will build and grow tax deferred inside this account. And when you take your money out, you pay taxes on it. So basically, a lot of people think, oh, you avoid taxes. You don't avoid taxes. What you do is you defer them to a much later period. And why this is an advantage is all that interest and everything else, and when you sell a stock that would have been taxed if it was an investment account, is now not taxed until you pull it out. That's the real advantage of an IRA, is this deferred growth on your investments. So a lot of times people will say, well, can I just have a savings account or should I put the money in an IRA? Well, you can open an IRA and then put your money in a savings account. But then, one, you can't get that money easily without paying the penalty. So if you want that money quickly before you turn 59 and a half, it's going to be difficult, and I wouldn't suggest doing it. Also, if you're just putting in a savings account, the amount of taxes you're deferring is very small. Right now, interest rates are maybe 2, at best 3%. So if you get a small return, you're only paying taxes on that 3% that you're earning each year. So the amount of tax deferral isn't that great. So really, in a retirement account, what you want to do is put it into more risky assets that you're going to hold for a long period. And over that long period, historically, there's been a lot of returns. So what's a long period? Most people think about 10 years or more. And then what you're going to do is you're going to buy stocks or a stock index with your investments and let it grow and don't touch it for at least 10 years. Let it build. And then when you sell it, fine, at some point you'll take the money out. But don't think of this as a short-term thing. This is really where you put your long-term money. One other thing is called a Roth IRA. Now this is a little bit more complicated because it's still a retirement account. But the advantage of the Roth IRA is a little bit different than just a traditional IRA. So with a Roth IRA, you'll put your money and the contribution limits are exactly the same. But now when you put your money in, you don't get a deduction. But the advantage is you get all that buildup, and when you want to take your money out, you don't get taxed on it. So there can be some real advantages of which item and which way you want to go with your two retirement accounts. If you think that in the future you're going to be in a higher tax bracket, then you definitely want to put your money into a Roth IRA. And why is that? Because your money is going to grow, and when you take it out, when you would be at a higher tax bracket, you don't have to pay taxes. A lot of people, though, are in a higher tax bracket while they're still earning money and not during retirement. That's why an IRA might be better for them. They get the deduction today, and then in the future, when they have less income and they're in a lower tax bracket, they'll take their money out. So it's really a very specific thing to the person. There's two other considerations that I think you should make. If you're self-employed and you qualify for Obamacare, or you're close to that line and you use it, sometimes that extra deduction for the IRA can be very advantageous because it drops your income down and lowers it. And so then you qualify for more of a subsidy from Obamacare. On the other hand, let's say you're planning to get Social Security, and you're going to be right on the line of when Social Security becomes taxable, which is usually around $20,000 to $30,000, depending on whether you're single or married. If you're going to have taxable income at Social Security, a lot of times the Roth makes more sense, because then when you're taking out the money on the Roth, it's not taxed, it doesn't raise your income, so then the Social Security money is not taxed. It's a really difficult play, and it's one thing you just kind of have to play through with your own personal taxes and finances. But if you're aware of those couple things, you can really make the best choice for you. Now, one nice thing about IRAs and Roth IRAs is you have until April 15th, or the tax deadline, to decide of which account to put your money. And so you'll put all $6,000. You can put it during the year, but you have up until that April 15th deadline to choose. So if you're using a tax software, you can actually see which is most advantageous. Put in the Roth, and then you can think to yourself, okay, in the future, is this going to be better for me? Or you can put your money into an IRA, and the computer program should show you how much you're saving. So it's a really good way to figure out, before you do it, which is the better account for you, and it lets you think through those options at year end. Now the final piece is called what's called a 401k. And these are sponsored by employers. Now you can put money into an IRA and a 401k, but there becomes income limitations if you have a 401k as far as how much money you can put into an IRA. Don't worry about that for now. A lot of times the software that you're using will tell you whether or not you qualify. The downside to a 401k is oftentimes it's not as many options to choose from when you're investing. Also, the fees can be higher than in an IRA when you're deciding which investments to go with. The advantage of the 401k, though, is there's higher contribution limits, so you can put more money into a retirement account. And also the biggest one is that employer match. So most employers have a thing where if you put money in up to a certain percentage, they'll match that. You always want to take advantage of the employer match. So what I suggest for most people is to do the employer match amount on a 401k, and any other amounts they want to invest in to put into the IRA or the Roth IRA. The 401k and the IRAs are very similar in the fact that you also can't take money out before 59 and a half without certain, there are certain exceptions, but that's the general rule. Also with IRAs and 401ks, when you turn to become 70 and a half, you have to start taking out a little bit of that money. Each year, the government requires you to draw that money down, even if you wanted it to build more. With a Roth, it's a little bit different. Any money that you've contributed to the account, you can take that out at any time. So that's a great advantage, because if you want to take your money out a year after you've put the money in, you can take it out. Now that doesn't apply to the earnings on your money. So let me just do a quick example. If you put $5,000 into a Roth IRA, you could pull that $5,000 out at any time. But if that $5,000 is grown because of your investments to $6,000, you couldn't touch that $1,000 growth without paying a penalty. But I think that puts the Roth over the edge a lot of times compared to an IRA, because that money, if you need to, can be accessed and you don't have to pay the 10% penalty. I know it can become confusing with all the different accounts that are out there, but hopefully this has clarified a little bit between the individual account, the IRA account, the Roth IRA account, and the 401k. Until next time, I'll see you then.